Continuing lesson 4.1 on constructing and interpreting scatter plots. If we look at workbook page 51, number 1, they have a table that shows the year and the average price for 1 gallon of gasoline at a certain gas station, and they want us to complete the scatter plot. So completing the scatter plot is we're just going to graph these points. So we've got so on our graph here, they don't have things labeled for us. This is gasoline prices. We probably want to see the change in the gasoline prices. So we're going to make that be our y-axis. So we can make this be the price in dollars. The question is what we want the x-axis to be. And notice the numbers that they've given us there. So with these numbers being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and noticing the years that we're starting with here, if we just make this be the years since 2000 or the years after 2000, after the year 2000, okay, how many years has it been after that? And basically then that just allows us to use smaller numbers, and so we're not so crammed of trying to fit those big numbers in there. So once we've got that part figured out, it's really just a matter of graphing, understanding 2002, how many years after 2000 would be 2, and that's $1.32. That one is kind of actually already marked for you guys. They've got a little dot there for some reason. 2003, so we'll go to the 3, and that's $1.53, so just above $1.50 there. 1.5 would be the $1.50 mark. Year 4, we're at $1.81, so a little bit higher yet, but not to the $2 mark. Year 5, we're at $2.28, so about almost halfway between the 2 and the 2.50. 2006, we're at $2.58, so just above the 2.5. 2007 is $2.82, so not quite to the $3 mark. 2008 is, so at the 8 we're at $3.24, so about halfway between the 3 and the 3.5. And then 2009 we're at $2.32. $2.32 back down here. Okay, so that's kind of what our scatter plot would look like. It didn't necessarily ask this, but they could have asked about what kind of relationship or correlation we have here. So generally, this has a positive correlation. These points actually are very close to making a straight line, other than our one point over here. Okay, the gas prices kind of dropped off there, and that point, which we could call an outlier. It is quite separated from the other points. Okay, so again, they didn't ask other than graphing this, but thinking about that this would, you know, even if we have an outlier, we can still say generally this has a positive relationship. Generally, you know, as the years go on since the year 2000, the price of gas was going up each year. Number 3, scatter plot represents the number of hours since the city parking lots opened and the number of cars in the parking lots. So the first thing they want us to identify any outliers in the scatter plot. So outliers, again, we're looking for ones that are kind of way out there on their own, quite separated from the other points. So the points that are further away from the other ones would be this point up here. So 2 and I think 39, I think they're going by threes actually. this point here, so 10, 3. This other point is kind of a borderline point here, this 527. It is a little bit off, so you could maybe argue for it, but those other two that I've marked with the blue arrows are a little bit further out, so we might want to lean more towards those as actually being our outliers for this problem. Part B, so actually technically for identifying the outliers, rather than just putting arrows there, we should probably put, so that's 239 and 10.3 would be the coordinates of those points. The next part, identify any clusters in the scatter plot. So clusters, we're looking for some groups here that are kind of close together. So this one is pretty nice graph, a little bit more obvious than sometimes of what they show as far as clusters. So you can see we've got kind of a cluster here and a cluster here. As far as saying our answers, we could kind of look at the different values. So this is 3 hours and this is 6 hours. Those would be some numbers we could think about. This one we've got 8 hours and 11 hours. So when we're identifying our clusters there, so to be specific, we could say between 3 and 6 hours, which is 5 to 13 cars, and between 8 and 11 hours, which is 26 to 34 cars, would be where our clusters are. And then part C, identify any gaps in the scatter plot. And they're asking what situation might have caused the gap. So a gap, again, is we're going to have kind of a space in between some points. And so kind of in between our clusters here, in the middle, we've got a gap. And so that's, we could say between 6 and 8 hours is where our gap is. So some good answers for this one. We could say things about it's people getting off work. You know, we could talk about people getting off work. And then since it goes up again, we could say, and then, you know, the next shift of workers come. Okay, so they park their cars, and then we have that increase in that second cluster that we talked about. So look at number 4. Scatter plot represents the price and the number of items sold. Your friend incorrectly says the cluster in the graph is between the prices of $3 and $25 and between 5 and 20 items sold. What error did your friend likely make? So if we look at this, the cluster really is over here. This one is an outlier. And so that's probably what's happening there. The error is that they included the outlier. And then part B, explain the relationship between the number of items sold and the price. And again, when we decide on this, we are not worrying about the outlier. We're ignoring the outlier, just looking at the other points. So this would be, on part B, we could probably call this a positive relationship or positive correlation. In other words, as the price goes up or price increases, the items sold increases. And then part C, they want us to identify the cluster and explain what it tells you about the data. So to be specific on the cluster rather than just circling it, we could say that the cluster is between 5 and 15 items sold if we look on our y-axis, and then between $15 and $25. So a little vague about exactly what we're talking about here, but as far as explaining what it tells us about the data, if I'm interpreting this correctly, we could say that it tells us a lot of people sold $15 to $25 and 5 to 15 items. Number 5, they want us to use the scatter plot to answer this question. Scatter plot shows the day of the month and the amount of rain in a city, and they want us to select all the statements that apply. So the first thing they want us to see is if there is an outlier at day 26. And if we look at the graph, we do have one point way out here, and if we check right halfway between 24 and 28 would be 26, so that looks to be correct. The second thing they want us to check is if there's a cluster of days when it rained between days 6 and 15. Between days 6 and 15. So if we look, we do have a cluster here, but this is day 6, and day 15 would be over here. This is actually starting at day 5 and going, this is 10, so this would be 11. It's actually between days 5 and 11, not between day 6 and 15. So we will not check that one. There's a gap of no rain falling between days 10 and 26. Between 10 and 26. So we are very close here. It says no rain between days 10 and 26. There's actually rain on day 11 and then nothing till 26. So if the numbers were a little different, but with what they've given us, we'll not check that one. There were 3 days of the month when it rained exactly 27 millimeters. So if we look at this, looking for 27, I see a 26. I don't know what I'm going by unless I look below that. So 22 and then 26. So halfway between that, that's a difference of 4. So half of that would be 2. So they're going by 2s. So that'd be 24, 26, 28. So 27 is going to be halfway between 26 and 28. So I see a dot here, a dot here, and a dot here. So that is 3 times that it rained exactly 27 millimeters. So we can check that one as well. And then the last one, greatest difference in the recorded amounts of rain in the city during the month was 3 millimeters. Greatest difference of rain was 3 millimeters. And this one actually would work as well. If we look, our lowest amount of rainfall was 26. Our highest is up here above the 28. Halfway between 28 and 30 would be 29. So we had 26 and 29, and that's a difference of 3 millimeters. 29 minus 26. So we can check that one off as well. So this gives you an idea of how to construct and interpret scatter plots.